Hello and welcome back to PuckLuck.com betting and fantasy team previews for the Columbus Blue Jackets. Columbus Blue Jackets team that finished just 1 point out of dead last. They were right in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. They end up getting the third overall selection, but what many would consider the second best prospect in the draft in Adam Fantilli, an elite shooter, a guy that I think they're really excited about. We talked quite a bit about him in some of our previous stuff at the Morning Skate podcast, and he'll be, a guy that we're going to be tracking for years and years to come. The Columbus Blue Jackets, though, have had a few years in a row now where it just really hasn't gone their way. They hit Johnny Gaudreau last offseason, coming off 115 points. He was not the same player, not the same skill around him. 74 points last year, as I double check. And it just never really clicked. They get Patrick Laine, Werenski goes down with a big injury. And it kind of felt like this team had a bit more meat on the bone than third to last or tied second to last. Um, and as I'm already mentioning, they a couple pieces coming in, but let's get into everything. There's really no sense in waiting around here. What could next season look like for the Columbus Blue Jackets? We start with their point projection, which is one of the lowest, 53 points, the lowest so far. And we talked about Arizona and Anaheim, so not great. Ceiling of 65 and a floor of 35. Now, I'm definitely going to come in higher than our model's projection myself, which again is not saying much. 53 points. That's just, what they had 58 last year, 59. So not much worse than they were last year in reality, just a few games the other direction. But I think this is very largely goalie driven. Verslingens has been atrocious as of late. I think that there could be a better team there around him that just hasn't really found its groove. They were missing so many, key pieces last year. But I think a lot of the reason for like feeling more confident in the goaltending and feeling more confident in this team was Mike Babcock, and that's gone off the rails early on in this offseason. So it's kind of hard to know if like this defensive structure people were sort of alluding to is going to actually get there. So let's just get right into the DraftKings Sportsbook bets. The under is a heavy favorite by the model. 72.5 is what they have. We have them much lower than that. I think under 72.5 is fair, but it's again kind of saying like goaltending is bad. I think that below 60 is kind of that the real floor for them. Again, they have goal scoring talent. They have a few defenders who are worth something, but goaltending could legitimately be the worst in the league. And I don't think that's saying much. Like them and the Sharks, like who are you looking at with worst goaltending? I think Lincoln's, like I'm saying, could be a little bit better than previous couple of years, but we've learned with goaltenders, it's really hard to bounce back from kind of just being terrible. We've seen it with Jordan Binnington in the past, bit of a flash in the pan. So yeah, everything else here is priced to oblivion. I have absolutely no interest in betting them to make the playoffs, division, or Stanley Cup. So I'm really not going to. I mean, the odds are not even close to what we have, and not close to what I have either. So we'll get right into the player point projections. A couple of these are findable on your sports books. Let me pull them back up again. So Johnny Gaudreau is listed at 28.5 goals. Ben Tilly for 46.5 over under on points, and Verslingens for 20.5 wins over under. Our model likes Fantilli. I think it's fine. I kind of feel like it's one of those things where you go to Underdog, you go to Prize Picks, whatever you use for your season long betting that isn't just a traditional sports book, and you might just pair them together. We have them projected as top line players together. It kind of feels like that's the sense in Columbus right now, although we're a little bit before training camp and we don't know with a huge amount of certainty if Fantilli is on that first line as we're projecting him to be. I like them together to do something. I just don't know if I want to be betting on Gaudreau to be the goal scorer there. 28.5 would be a pretty big improvement from last year. As I mentioned, he had 74 points, 21 of those were goals. And what if it's Line that's on the other wing? I know there's rumors of Line being at center. Hard to know again. Like we don't really know what it's going to look like, and it might just be a wait and see method. I like Fantilli to maybe get over that 46.5 mark, but I really would rather just pair him with Gaudreau because he's getting there because he's with Gaudreau. I'd like to look if I could find both of them for player points if I'm going to bet either at all. Nothing else really comes off the page. Let's just get over it. Like I mean, we're going to talk about Werenski at length at the end here. I think again, that might be a little bit low, but let's get over to the projected lineup. It's a bit of a you might look at this and say looks good. You might look at this and say not even close. Honestly, it's so up for debate that I'm not even going to, your argument is as good as mine. Gaudreau, Fantilli, Marchenko, Kent Johnson, Jenner, and Line. The bottom six, again, there's like Roslovich and stuff that could mix in a little bit more. but we just again don't know what this is going to look like. And again, kind of getting back to my point where is Gaudreau as good of a bet for goals? Like I like the under a bit for goals, but I don't think I'm like I think this Columbus team it's like it's kind of boom or bust, and it really is going to be the goal scoring from the top line. If Fantilli is just actually going to be in, if we're thinking that this is a steal at 48, what was it, 46 and a half, I think I've said it like 10 times now, but um, like if that number is not even close, like he smashes 46 and a half with no problem, the guys around him are also probably going to smash their point projections like Gaudreau. So I'm going to be looking where I can find to pair them two together on a site like Prize Picks. If you find it anywhere else, please let me know. I'd definitely be looking into it. Defense is just better. I mean, I'm not the biggest Ivan Provorov fan in the world, but he had some really, really good numbers in the past defensively, and it completely went off the rails. Is the contract great? Not really. Did they give up too much to get him? Probably. But I still think that Ivan Provorov needed a change of scenery, and maybe he could get back to being a pretty good player. It's not like he's, that old. Damian Severson, on the other hand, was a really, really good analytics darling. So that is kind of getting to more of the Zach Wierenski could be a bit better. Um, Kind of busy in Columbus right now, as I alluded to, and I don't really need to get into too much of it. So instead of going around trying to figure out a guy from the media to quote, um, I went to my Discord, asked around a little bit. Someone from the Discord was pretty adamant about Zach Wierenski, and it kind of just built into a conversation in Discord. If you want to get in the Morningscape Discord and you want to talk about hockey nonstop and literally talk about the player debates, anytime you want to jump in, it's free to join. We have bets and whatnot in there as well. Um, a lot of talk about Zach Werenski kind of potentially being that Eric Carlson from last year, and it makes a lot of sense on paper. You just think like really bad team. The guy that's going to mix in a lot, be very offensive in many capacities, and just sort of they could be freewheeling a bit. Um, I could see where that could get there. I'm definitely overdrafting him in Vespuck, and I'm going to be really keying in on him where he's going in a season long formats because I am a believer in Zach Grensky as that kind of an offensive player. Of course, getting to a 100-point mark would be absolutely unbelievable. But again, I think he's super, super, super intricate for this offense succeeding. So I'll be looking for him as well for point projections if I can find him anywhere. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And definitely, if you want to talk more about Zach Grensky, again, join the Discord where, anything you could want and more for hockey is in there. And a lot of degenerates who would love to nothing more than to talk about fantasy hockey while we're, suffering through the beginning of football season. So definitely um, this Columbus team, I had them a little bit higher. I'm not going to be betting any of their point totals myself, and I'm going to be betting that over on Fantilli. And I'm going to be looking to pair it with Gaudreau or Zach Werenski if I can find them anywhere. And again, I think that's the best way to bet player points. I haven't really said that yet, but since we don't have a lot of media quotes to cover, if you can go to an underdog or a prize picks, etc. And if you have any questions about those sites, DM me, whatever. If you can bet players together to fail or succeed that are likely going to be paired together, makes quite a bit of sense. And even if one gets injured and you're like, well, then that's probably a really good player on the top line getting injured, and now a replacement player that's much worse. So any way you look at it, I think there's upside from a unders or over perspective of taking players that are likely going to get lots of minutes together for overs or unders. So a little free advice at the end, as there's really not a ton here with not a great team, a team that again is going to be on the outside looking in, but getting there and has a lot of promise in the future and a much better defense in front of Elvis Lincolns, who we're going to find out if he can do it. So thank you for listening, and we will be back very soon with Dallas.